Hi everyone, and thanks for joining today's investor webinar with Estrella Resources. I'm David Tasker and I'll be moderating today's session. We're joined by Estrella's Managing Director Chris Dawes to discuss the company's exciting progress in Timor-Leste, including the recent upgrade of exploration permits, the arrival of the country's first RC and diamond drill rig, and what lies ahead as the company prepares to break new ground, literally and figuratively. Chris, first of all, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, David. Thanks for the introduction. Always a pleasure talking to you and the investors and our shareholders. So welcome into those that are viewing in live, and hopefully we'll be able to replay as we go forward over the next few days. Have another look.
Now, before we jump into it, just for the benefit of those who are watching, where are you? There's a little bit of noise around in the background, which is okay, but where exactly are you and what's happening there in the background?
Yeah, so I'm in base camp or our Dilly camp, our staging ground for all of our exploration works in Timor-Leste. We leased this property with H2O just over 12 months ago. We've just re-signed a further lease and expanded some of the office space down the back over my shoulder. We have a facility here where we can bring in samples. We have a lot of space. We do our sampling, crushing, and just preliminary lab work. We can XRF and get preliminary samples of some of the work that the guys are doing out in the field. We have other opportunities to cut core as well here, diamond core, so that'll reduce our weights when we start to get the samples off to laboratories, etc. It's a good bit of space. It's out of the way of the main part of the city, and yeah, as I said, we're sitting here with H2O with all the gear, and it's quite secure. So a really good spot for us to establish ourselves.
Well, we know this is live because we can hear the animals in the background, but that's part and parcel in working in those parts of the world. Now,
yeah, you do get used to it.
I should say that the format for today is that I'll be talking to Chris and asking a range of questions regarding today's announcement and putting questions to him that have been sent in by shareholders already. A number have come through via the Investor Hub system. But I would remind you, if you have any questions you would like me to put to Chris, please submit them using the box on your screen and I will put them to Chris. Now, let's get started. Chris, Estrella was the first company to convert reconnaissance permits to full exploration and evaluation licenses under Timor-Leste's new mining laws. That seems like a big milestone. What does the achievement represent for Estrella and its strategy in the country?
Yeah, thanks, David. That's a good question, and it's a massive step forward for us. It more than doubles our ability to use more heavy equipment in terms of drilling equipment, etc., and more ground disturbance to get into areas that we see as highly prospective. And being a first, we've been doing that a lot in Timor. You know, we were the first to get our award of the exploration evaluation licenses in the international tender. We've been the first to be granted direct grant tenements at Samolari. We were the first to get RPs, reconnaissance permits, and we're now being the first to convert those RPs to exploration evaluation licenses. And again, it's doubling our ability or doubling our land holding to have access to drill space. It's a big area. It's a 268 square kilometre area, so it is a big area that we have to cover.
Now, you touched on it here, but I'll just put the questions to you as they're coming through. What does the conversion allow you to do now that wasn't possible before under reconnaissance permits? And you've also touched on the increase in land holding. You've gone from 121.5 square kilometres to just over 260, almost 270 square kilometres. How meaningful is that increase in terms of exploration scale and potential?
Yeah, look, it is a big area, and we are now, with our joint venture partner, Murak, the largest tenement and concession holder in Timor-Leste. I guess the RPs allowed us to move across the tenements and look at the geology. We could take no more than 20 kilos of samples within those RPs. There's no ground disturbance, so it's all footwork. It's all moving across the tenure with our geologists and doing basic field mapping. These upgrades to exploration and evaluation allows us to then move in and submit permitting work for drilling, trenching, and more detailed sampling of geology that we think is prospective. Having the largest tenement and concession holding in Timor-Leste has been a lot of hard work by our team. Certainly our exploration manager has worked extremely diligently in applying this process in the mining code of Timor-Leste to give us the ability to get access to tenure. And we're working very, very closely with the statutory bodies who have been aiding and assisting us by granting us the ability, or granting Estrella and its joint venture partner, Murak, the ability to explore the country.
Now, you've previously highlighted the significance of the Noni formation and supergene manganese at targets like, now apologise if I mispronounce these, Sika and Iramiri. What is the geological model underpinning these targets, and how does it compare to other known manganese regions?
Yeah, David, it is quite unique in some respects. The prospects or the geological model that we have developed over the last 8 to 12 months that's led to the discoveries like Iramiri is a sedimentary supergene model. So think a basin in the ocean that is filling up with manganese nodules or manganese. That has come, and our geological model is that it's been pushed up out of the ocean, it's been exposed to air and weathering, and it's created a very high grade, thick supergene manganese layer. It's then gone back subsurface of the ocean and has been covered by, our model suggests, been covered by younger limestones, and then has come back up through different periods of geological time. It's come back up out of the ocean and is now weathering through again. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing this preserved manganese, high-grade manganese supergene zone, and we've been collectively pushing our geologists through the field to identify where that Noni formation exists or outcropping. We've done IP across the top of that formation to see if the manganese persists below the surface of the younger limestones, and that's what we're about to step into to directly test with obviously the drilling going forward. And that's the exciting part, because what is exposed or what we've found at Iramiri and other places is a manganese that is world class. It's the highest grade, lowest deleterious element manganese anywhere on the planet, and that's very evident by the interest that we're seeing come from all quarters of the globe in what we're doing in Timor in relation to the exploration work. So the model seems to stack up. The drilling will be the determining factor, but we definitely believe that there's plenty of manganese to be found in Timor, and we'll push ahead with the exploration diligently now that we have the additional licenses as well. Those licenses do, we believe, hold Noni formation, and we've seen manganese within those leases, among other minerals. But yeah, we're very, very keen to go and test that model further across extensive land holdings that we have.
Just an extension to that question, can you share more detail on what you're looking to test? And I know you sort of touched on that there, but what would success look like in the early stage?
Yeah, that's another good question, David. Looking at what we have and what we've seen in Timor, and globally what you do see, we would be very happy to be able to drill, and we're starting with diamond drilling initially, drilling a few, and so we can get core and we can actually visually see what we're dealing with, and it's a soft start to the drilling program as we train our teams up. We would be happy with 2 to 3 meters at greater than 45% manganese. Anything above that consistently would be an exceptional result. The IP surveys that we've done suggest that the manganese does persist back in under the outcrops. It suggests that those zones are reasonably thick, but we can only do the test work and define that by the drilling. But we are certainly hoping that we see at least 2 to 3 metres at plus 45% manganese in repetitive holes, and we're drilling some 90 holes at Iramiri have been planned, subject to results.
You touched on milestones at the beginning, hitting a number of them, and a lot of firsts in country, for not just for Estrella, but just in country generally. One of those is also the arrival of a custom-built RC diamond drill rig. Can you walk us through how the partnership with Core Search came together and what it means for Estrella going forward?
Yeah, David, that it's been no easy feat to get drilling equipment to a country that has never seen any modern exploration ever undertaken in the history of its life. We set about, in initially coming into Timor 12 months ago, we were fortunate enough to land in H2O's yard. They were a dedicated water well drilling company. They've been here since pre-2000. They were here during the occupation of the Indonesian occupation, and they're here during the Interfet days, drilling water wells for the SAS fogs. They are very, very well versed in moving about the country with equipment, heavy equipment. They know the lay of the land, the culture, the ground conditions, moving heavy equipment in rainy seasons, dry seasons. So to be able to land in H2O's yard with somebody that really knows the lay of the land, knows all of the systems, how to move heavy equipment in and out of the port system, access drilling equipment out of the Northern Territory, very, very close. These guys are professional drillers. They've been drilling water wells in the country for over 25 years, some 500 water wells. But before that, Leon Merrington and his team have been drilling, diamond drilling, RC drilling in Australia for a very, very long period of time. Their team is very much well trained in the operations of diamond and RC. In fact, the lead driller that has come across to assist H2O or Core Search is Dave Burkett. He's a third generation diamond driller, RC driller, ex-DDH1. I mean, you can't get these guys are the best of the best. When you get down to it and you see them operate, it's just been a bit of fortuitous luck that we fell in their lap, so to speak, and landed in the H2O yard. And I was exposed to their abilities. And then I said to Leon, I said, well, let's stop drilling water wells. Let's go hunting for minerals. And he was 100% behind it. He's been wanting to drill for economic minerals in the country for a very long period of time. He just needed a company like Estrella to turn up on his doorstep so that he could put his skill set and our skill set together to forge ahead and make an industry and create an industry, minerals exploration and mine development industry in Timor-Leste for the very first time. Both our teams are very excited. We're both very dedicated to what we're doing, but it has been a monumental task to this date to get a massive amount of consumables, drill rigs into the country, and then start training the local teams up as well. So there's been a lot of work going on in the last couple of months and planning, but we're just about to press the go button and execute.
Just touching on the exclusive access you do have to this rig for the first 20,000 metres, what does it allow Estrella to do in terms of cost, control, continuity? What's the real benefit of that exclusive access?
Yeah, so we've partnership with H2O Core Search. We've funded their ability to bring equipment in and set up. So as part of that process, we have locked down that equipment for our use. So it won't be going anywhere unless Estrella suggests that it can be released for other third parties. It's staying within the group and staying within the group to execute our drill programs moving forward. So that partnership is a true partnership. We've expended quite a bit of capital to get them to this point and get ourselves to this point. But we're in a remote location with no drill services that have ever been here. It's more expensive than rolling out the drill rigs in the back of Kalgoorlie, I must admit. But the rewards on the other side are worthy of the spend. So all the way ups that we've done, do we spend here, do we spend there, and what's the end result, and what's the risk reward? We've weighed it all up and we've said, yeah, we're in 100% because we can see the value in getting here and drilling holes in Timor.
Limestone, today's announcement was the first time really you referenced it. Now adding that mineralisation opportunity to the licenses that have just come through. Is it a bit of a sleeper opportunity? Limestone is not a well-known commodity here in Australia, or probably within the investing community, but certainly it seems like you've added it there for a reason. It appears to be high purity and clearly very close to the coast. What sort of commercial and export opportunity do you think there is for that material?
Yeah, David, look, and it does form a big part of what we announced and released today. It's a very, very important piece of the cog in terms of our portfolio. The mineral suite that we have in our EELs, gold, copper, manganese, chromite, we have put the addition of limestone there in RPs 1, 2, 3 and 4 in the upgrades to the new EELs. The reason we did that is that very early on in the piece, in our mapping and surveying, we identified a number of limestone stratigraphies that look very interesting in terms of their grades, like the colour of them, etc. It interested us. So we actually took those away and we had them analysed in WA, and those analyses have come back and identified what is very, very almost a pure calcite limestone, very low silica, very low in other sort of elements, iron and etc., but very high in calcite. What is limestone potentially used for? Well, it's used in cement, it's used in a lot of industrial purposes, but high calcite or a high limestone or calcite limestone is what they do use in industry for acid neutralisation and to bring pH levels to a neutral state. Now, we've identified this. It's very, very close to the coast. There is megatons of the material. When I say megatons, we're talking in the billions of tons potentially, and we will test that. And we can now test that with our EEL concessions being granted and limestone being added. So it will form part of the drilling process moving forward. We are very, very interested in testing the market for production of acid neutralisation limestones into the Asian, Southeast Asian markets. Think about the strength of the nickel industry in Indonesia, their coal industries and what's been happening there over the past 10 years. Think about the environmental damage and tailings that have been spewed out into their environment, and what this limestone could represent as an opportunity to fix those environmental concerns, but also open up a completely new industry for Timor-Leste and obviously for Australia as a first mover advantage. We're very, very excited about what that might represent, and we're going to go further with that. We're already diligently looking at that, but the first things first is how much of it we have and what's the grade of it. But these concessions and these upgrades to the concessions is a massive step forward towards that. It does not in any way detract from the manganese that we're exploring, because the limestone inherently, the young limestones that sit on the layer of manganese, could potentially be stripped at a value and sold into markets to gain access to greater quantities of manganese in the sedimentary bed or manganese supergene bed below. So it's part of the whole targeting process that we have, and it's been generated through the exploration work that we've done over the last 12 months. It is pretty exciting.
Zooming in a little bit, you just touched on manganese. What's your current view on the manganese market? Where do you see Estrella fitting in? And should early exploration results continue to deliver, where does Estrella start fitting in that story?
Yeah, I guess the market in manganese has stabilised in the last year and a bit. We obviously had that massive price rally on the back of the closure, the force majeure of Groote Eylandt, and the high-grade seaborne manganese trade went into a pretty sharp decline. The rest of the market has filled that gap. It's been supplying the market, and prices have stabilised. I see manganese prices still maintaining that sort of 450 to 475 DMTU. At those sort of prices, a high-grade manganese product from Timor-Leste, which sits in close proximity to all of the key markets, Japan, South Korea, Malaysia, and those other regions, India, we will be able to compete with high-grade manganese if we can discover any quantities of it. So for our point of view is drill, get the resources up. Hopefully we can have resources at the some form of indicated resource, inferred resources by the end of this drill program as we go into the wet season later this year. But we would be anticipating those resources to be converted into mine reserves and look to bring those to market, possibly inside the next year or two, subject to the drilling. Our location of where these manganese projects are, their grade, their proximity to port, proximity to coast, and also the willingness of the Timorese government to aid and help and assist us, get us the necessary things that we need to do the work that we require and get this stuff to market, all leads to what I think is an exceptional project. If we have high-grade manganese of world class and we have some decent resources, this will stand out as one of the best, highest grade manganese projects anywhere in the globe.
Question that everyone's asking, drilling. You're sitting there, you're surrounded by the activity and the action. What's the hurdles, if there are any now, to get drilling, and what's the time frame that you're working for?
Yeah, so the Estrella team, we've done everything humanly possible to get us to this point. We are ready to go. We have just finalised our EIS, our environmental impact statements, environmental management plans. We've had statutory bodies to site. They've surveyed the areas, they've viewed them, they understand what we want to do, they've viewed the equipment. We're about to do some inductions with some of the teams, and we're already doing soft mobilisation of some of the equipment. Everything's here. We're all ready to go. We're just waiting at the moment, and we think it's imminent, is our final drill permitting from the statutory body, the ANM, the Authority National Minerals Department, and so far there's no indications that that's not going to be forthcoming. So we're geared up, we're ready to go. The sun is coming out, we're tailing off the wet season, and things are drying out so we can really get on the ground and go hammer and tongs. But yeah, we're ready to go, and it's not far before we punch the first hole ever in Timor for economic minerals.
Last couple of questions, probably drawing a little bit more to what the future looks like and funding. But the first one, which has come through, relating to environment and community engagement. So you've placed, we've seen it across your announcements, presentations, etc., that you've placed a lot of emphasis on community consultation and environmental stewardship. What steps are being taken on the ground to ensure strong local relationships and long-term social licence to operate?
Yeah, that's a very good question, actually. We take our ESG very, very seriously. We have prepared, we have policies, when we implement those policies, we carry them out on our environmental works. I mean, we will go in as any other Australian company would back home. We'll have a light footprint, as light as we can, and when we extract ourselves, we'll be rehabilitating. We're not going in there to destroy any pristine neighbourhood. We're not going to go cutting down teak forests or anything like that. So that's very important to us. The community engagement and the cultural aspects of Timor are significant. When you get here, you start to understand the cultural side of things, and it's very important to them. Their ancestors, their past history, and their fight for independence, etc. And they hold themselves in a very, very highly in terms of where they've been and where they've come to. So, in fact, their Independence Day is coming up on next Tuesday, the 20th. That's going to be a big event from a cultural aspect. The flags are already all out and waving. But we've engaged a number of community liaison staff. And, in fact, I should say this, we've just engaged, as of in the last few weeks, the ex-president of the ANPM. He worked with the ANPM, which is the before the ANM and the petroleum divisions split. So you had a mineral and petroleum division together, and then they split. This chap was there 6 years, had 3 years as president. He actually formulated the mining code and presented that to the Parliament and passed it through Parliament. He knows the mining code back to front. And he's been aiding and assisting us getting through and working within that mining code. So we have a team of Timorese nationals, and they're guiding us through the processes of this cultural experience. I've just spent the last 2 weeks out in the field undertaking a number of cultural ceremonies. We put on a big feast and do a few blessings and those sort of things. They're very religious. They're very religious people. 98, 99% Christians. They all go to church on a Sunday. I mean, it's great. So I feel very comfortable and safe, and I feel privileged to be able to say that we are doing everything right in terms of what we're doing as Estrella as a corporate entity, but also engaging with the local community. And they're very accepting of us and what we're doing and what we're trying to achieve. They understand we're trying to bring Timor up in the world on the world stage, and we're happy to be waving the flag for Timor, and we're happy to be waving the flag for our shareholders and Australia and doing business in Timor as best we can.
Last couple of questions. What does the exploration and drilling budget look like for the next 12 months, and how are those programs currently funded?
Yeah, so we have circa $3 million in the bank. We have option monies that have been converted, and hopefully that continues. We've got a drill program over the next 4 to 6 months, circa be $1.1 to $1.2 million, subject to those results coming through as we move forward, as we expect. We will look to expand that, but if we get the results we're looking for or anticipating, I don't think funding is ever going to be a problem for Australia anytime soon. We've managed over the last year or two to raise capital at premiums to market in sometimes what are pretty awful markets. We have done that at premiums. We've gained the respect of some of the biggest manganese traders in the world. They've seen what we have. They're sitting with us. They're right with us. They're going to push us through this program to resources, and they're going to aid and help us get this stuff to market. So in terms of financing, look, I don't think that's ever going to be a problem if we get the right results. And we can only see what Mother Nature brings us, but so far so good.
Final question. Assuming promising results, you have touched on this briefly, but this question has come through, so we'll put it to you. Assuming promising results come from this maiden drilling program, what's the roadmap towards resource definition and potential commercial development?
Yeah, so it'll be obviously the first 1,000, 2,000 metres at Irimiri. If we're getting our model stacks up and we're getting decent thicknesses of supergene manganese below the younger limestones, we will look to drill out a resource specifically at Irimiri and do mine planning or resource calculations and mine planning specifically around that in a very short time frame. I'm talking, it'll be inside 12 months. We will look to run collectively with that. Once we know that we're getting the right results, we would start to build out the process of gaining mining approvals, port access, laydowns, all the things that we need in parallel to start a mining operation and get it to port and get it to market. Some really good news came through in the last few months with the upgrade of the road from Lautem to Com. That road, they're spending another $26 million on that to upgrade that. That's only going to aid and abet Australia in terms of its movement across the country. As I've mentioned in previous interviews and in our announcements, the infrastructure within Timor where we sit is very, very good. We've got 2-lane highway across the top of the country. We can get access to our concessions relatively easy. And being on that northern coast and access to port, or potentially building a dedicated port if the resources are sufficient enough, then we'll look to do that as well. But the location, it's all about location with bulk commodities. We're not 600 kilometres inland from the coast of Port Edland. We're not 1,000 kilometres in from the coast in South Africa. We're 15 kilometres off the coast. You couldn't ask for a better location.
Thanks, Chris. A great overview. Clearly an exciting time for Australia as you take on a first mover role in a new jurisdiction with clearly strong geological potential, as you've outlined. Thanks for making yourself available and answering all the questions that came through. There was a stack of them. We got through them all, so thank you for taking the time.
Thanks, David. I appreciate that. And I'd just like to say, stay tuned, stay engaged, go Estrella.
Thanks everyone for joining in. Thanks for firing through all the questions. Have a great day, and use Investor Hub. If you do have any further questions, submit them through Investor Hub, and Chris and the company will get them back to you as soon as they possibly can. So thanks everybody, and have a great day.